the learners of this subject, mythology, and especially to our advisor of this subject, Ma'am Mary Miliana Swanson. Good evening! Hello!
Hi!
So this evening, we will be discussing about 8 brief tales of lovers, which is specifically about Hieramos and Thespe, Orpheus and Eurydice, Ceyx and Alcyone, Pygmalion and Galatea, Baucis and Philemon, Endymion, Daphne, Alpheus, and Arethusa. So as I have read these sources about these 8 brief tales of lovers, we will discover if their love stories are tragic or ends in happily ever after. So join me in this discussion this evening. So first, we will be learning about the brief tales of love about Hieramos and Thespe. So according here, Hieramos and Thespe are madly in love with each other, meaning their love is kanang full of kinig-kilig and a lot like that. So they basically like each other to the intense level. And the lucky thing is they live in houses next to each other. So meaning they are neighbors. So their parents, however, there's a hindrance, forbid their romance and build a wall between the houses. So if this is the house of Hieramos, even though they live next to each other, there is a wall between them, dividing them. So the lovers, however, find a chink in the wall through which they speak and kiss one another. So when we say a chink, it is like a small hole wherein a person, only with using its sense of sight, like its eye, it can only see to the other side of the wall. So they created a chink to see and kiss each other. So one night, they decided to run away together, meeting at the tomb of Ninos. So Thespe arrives first. So Thespe here is the girl, and she sees a terrifying lioness with blood on its mouth. So as she arrived at the tomb of Ninos to meet Hieramos, she sees a lioness or a female lion, and this lion has a blood on its mouth. She runs away in fear. So she runs away from the tomb. Far, far away she runs, dropping her cloak. So Thespe at that time, she's wearing a cloak. And as she ran away, it fell down. So the lioness tears up the cloak. So meaning, the lioness have tear apart the cloak. And blood is within. So if anyone might find that cloak, what do you think they will think about it? Like the cloak falls, the lioness tear it apart, and it has blood. So meaning, someone might infer or think that the lioness eat or tear apart those who own the cloak. So when Hieramos arrives, late than Thespe. So as he arrived, he sees the cloak. That's so unfortunate. And he just assumed without, like an evidence that Thespe there was eaten by the lioness. He assumes that his lover has died. Oh no. Yeah, anyone might infer that seeing that the cloak of Thespe tore apart and had its blood by the lioness, you would assume that Thespe is dead already. Am I right? Am I right with that, my student?
Yes.
Okay. And kills himself in sorrow. Oh my God. So Hieramos kills himself because of he think that Thespe died because of the lioness have eaten her. However, Thespe returns and he sees Hieramos' body and kills herself with the same knife. From then on, mulberries turn on the dark red color of their blood. So before, the color of the mulberries were white as snow. However, when these two lovers died, the color of the mulberries now turned into dark red color, making the lovers' blood eternal. So this is Hieramos and Thespe by Antonio Bellucci and Giorgio Pagani. So as you can see here, there are these two. So the male person there is Pyramus, and Thesbith is the female one. Also this one here. Okay, as you can see. Okay. Now, as we're done with Pyramus and Thesbith, let's move on to Orpheus and Eurydice, spelled as Eurydice. Okay, pardon. So Orpheus is the most talented musician alive, rivaling only the gods. So I think the gods is envied of him. He was envied by the gods because of his talent in music. So like, di ba, Apollo is the musician there among the 12 gods, the Olympus gods. So Orpheus naman, in counterpart for the human being, so Orpheus is like a counterpart in Apollo in terms of human race. So he falls in love with Eurydice, but a viper stings her and she dies. Oh my god. So the full story of this is that Orpheus falls in love with Eurydice and they decided to marry each other. However, after their wedding, a viper sting Eurydice. And oh my god, only for the trivial matter, the love of your life was lost because of just the sting of a viper, not by some tragic thing. So Orpheus would feel sad. It is their wedding day and they're supposed to have a honeymoon. But Eurydice died because of just this little viper. So Orpheus, in order to move on, travels down into the underworld. So because of Orpheus is madly in love with Eurydice, because wala pa sila ka-honeymoon, she already died, he decided to travel to the underworld. So as you can remember, underworld is ruled by who? Anyone? By Hades. Okay, very good. And also Persephone. Persephone. So that is word. So that place belongs to the dead. And as he travels down there, he wanted to beg Hades to return Eurydice. He successfully charms the creatures of death, you see, with his sweet music. And finally, Hades agrees to give Eurydice back to Orpheus on one condition. So as you can see, you can beg and you can charm the the god of death just because of your talent and music. So you're like an equivalent to gods already, like Apollo. So however, there is one condition, that Orpheus can bring back Eurydice to the earth. Okay? So the condition is, Orpheus must not look back at his wife as she follows him back above the ground. So that's the only condition. And I think it's very easy to follow. Like, you have the condition or rule that you can get back your wife to being alive just by following this. You don't look her, which Eurydice is at the back or the rear part of Orpheus as they go back, as they ascend back to the earth. Just before the two lovers return to the light, just one step and Orpheus might come back to the earth or to the light. Orpheus cannot wait any longer and looks back. My God, that's so big mistake. He sees his wife disappearing, saying farewell. So there is a lesson for that you should have patience at all. You should wait for something in order for it to be worth it. Like that. You should not rush on things. Am I right? Ready? Just two of the brief things and it's already tragedy, no? Let's move on to Ceyx and Alcyone. So Ceyx and Alcyone are married happily until one day when Ceyx decided to journey across the ocean. So when you say there's a journey across the ocean, it might encounter certain challenges, difficulties like the wind, the typhoon, or anything. There may be monsters of Poseidon. So, knowing the dangers of the sea, Alcyone, or his wife, begs him not to go, or at least to take her with him. But Ceyx, the Hipolo, declines her offer and sets out without her. On the first night of the journey, a storm ravages the ship. So meaning, the ship was destroyed by the storm. Oh my God, the ship of Sayex was destroyed by the storm. So what do you think would be the conclusion of that? He would survive or die? He would die, of course. And Sayex dies with Alcyon's name on his lips. As he died, his last word was, Alcyon, like that. So Alcyon continues to wait for her husband, making him clocks and praying fruitlessly to Juno for his safe return. Juno pities the woman and asks Somnos, who is the god of sleep, to tell her the truth about her husband's death. Just because during their time there is no Facebook, no mobile phones, so how can they update each other na I am here na sa Atlantic Ocean like that. So Alcyon did not know or she doesn't have any idea that Sayex already died in the middle of the ocean because of a storm. That's why, since Juno pitied her, that's why she sends or she asked the goddess of sleep to tell through a dream to Alcyon that Sayex already died to end her hope and to lessen her pain that she would be expecting that her husband might return someday. However, her husband won't return anymore. Somnus sent his son Morpheus to break the news in a dream. So, like an ordinary people, so when we dream something, do you think it would turn out to be or it is from reality or not? Diba some other dreams we believe it is a product of or just of our imagination or it might happen in reality. So Somnos, the god of sleep, he sent Morpheus, his son, to break the news in a dream. So Morpheus takes the form of the drowned Sayex. Alcyon wakes from a terrible dream and knows her husband has died. So because of that dream, Alcyon already knows that her husband died. So she goes into the ocean to drown herself and be with him. But she sees his body floating towards her. She dives in, but miraculously flies over the waves instead of sinking into death. So the gods have turned her into the bird. So as you can see, Alcyon, she wanted to go to the ocean because he wanted to see his husband. He wanted to drown herself because she knows that her husband died because of the dream from Somnus. So the gods have turned Alcyon into a bird. And the body of Sayex disappeared and Sayex turned into a bird as well. So they are still together, flying and in love. So it might be tragic in some way because in their human time, they both died, but during their afterlife, they already become two birds and they live happily ever after. They fly with each other in love. Let's back to our topic, 8 brief tales of lovers. So we are done about Pyramus and Thesby, Orpheus and Eurydice, Sayex and Alcyon, and there's 5 more. Are you okay with that, students? There's 5 more. Okay, now let's move on to Pygmalion and Galatea. Who's familiar with them? Galatea, Pygmalion, you're not familiar? Okay, now let's learn. Pygmalion or Pygmalion is a tremendously talented artist. Oh my God, tremendously talented. Who has never fallen in love with a woman. Instead, he has fallen in love with his art, specifically a beautiful sculpture of a woman. Oh my God, that is like a madness. So he is not in love with a real human or moving human with feelings, with emotions that is breathing, but he is in love with the woman that is made out of stone, that is made out of marble, a sculpture. So, as he is in love, as Pygmalion is in love with the sculpture of the woman, he gives her presents, tucks her into bed, and dresses her. So if you're in the modern world and you did this, you might go to the mental hospital for being in love with a sculpture. You dressed her, you sleep with her in the bed. Do you think he's not mad at this time? He may be mad, but this is just a myth after all. So finally, Pygmalion realizes the futility of his efforts and gives up. So he realized that there is no result or real results of this. There is no good ending for what he is doing. Venus notices that the situation. So Venus noticed that Pygmalion is in love with the sculpture, and he pities him, turning the statue into a living woman named Galatea. Then Pygmalion marries her. So Pygmalion must think to the goddess of to Venus, okay? Because she turned the woman whom Pygmalion is in love into a real woman, the real human being. And then Pygmalion then marries her. Let's move on to Baucis and Philemon. So Jupiter and Mercury decide to test the hospitality of humans. So they disguise themselves as poor travelers and knock on the doors of many houses, but no one will take them in. So no one would take these poor travelers, or no one would take those gods disguised as poor travelers, because somebody may think that maybe they're just, like they might steal something from us, or diba? It is like it is the inherent attitude of the humans na would not accept those poor travelers in their home. Finally, they approach a small hut owned by Baucis and Philemon, warmly invite the travelers inside, and offer all their food and wine. So as you can see, Baucis and Philemon were kind-hearted. So even though they didn't know that those poor travelers were the gods, they accepted them and even offered them food. It is not much. Baucis and Philemon explains that they are contented with what they have because they love each other. So like, it is more like the quote nga, bahala og wala nang ikaon, basta na hubog maayra daw. That is the kinimoto ni Baucis and Philemon. So eventually, the gods revealed themselves. So as what Baucis and Philemon good deeds, after that, the gods revealed themselves. So they destroyed the rest of the town in a flood. Oh my God. So they took revenge of those who didn't take them inside their home. But they spared Baucis and Philemon because of their good deeds. So Jupiter and Mercury also replaced the hut or the house of Baucis and Philemon with a large marble house. Baucis and Philemon then asked the gods that when they die, since Baucis and Philemon, only those who survived the great flood that destroyed their town, so they asked the gods that when they die, maybe in their old age, they would like to die together. So many years later, in their old age, as you can see, they didn't die out of sickness or out of being drowned by the flood, but they died out of old age. So they are in the middle of a conversation when they notice leaves springing forth from their bodies. So they're already like 100 years old, they're 99, and they have this conversation, and they notice that leaves springing out from their bodies. So they turn into a conjoined tree, a linden and an oak tree, both growing from one trunk. So linden and oak tree, before they are separate trees. However, since Baucis and Philemon asked to die with each other, so Jupiter and Mercury granted their wish in return for their favor. So since the linden and oak tree were different tree, they grow next to each other from a one trunk. So as you can see, because of the good deeds, because of the favor they have given to the gods, so the gods granted their in return of the favor that they give. Next is all about Endymion. So a beautiful young man, so Endymion is a man, catches the attention of Selene, the moon. So Selene puts him in a magical slumber. He lies as if dead, but in fact, he is alive and forever asleep. So Endymion, since Selene is likes him or has a crush on him, so Selene puts him into a deep sleep. So every night, Selene covers him with kisses. But it is said that she still suffers from loneliness. So this is the sad story of Endymion. Selene puts her in a magic slumber. So he's always sleepy. So he's always he sleeps as if he is dead. As you can see, there's people sleeping like a dead person. And Selene can't wake him up. Can only do covering him with a kiss. And she suffers because she can't talk to Endymion. It is all about Daphne. So, this is the 7th Brief Tales of Lover, which is all about Daphne. So Daphne is a stunning wood nymph whom Apollo desires. So Daphne is liked by Apollo. So Apollo likes her or has a crush on her or maybe in love with her. So he comes down and chases her through the woods. Oh my God, someone is desiring you or likes you and chases you. Do you think you can run? You want to run away from that, diba? Even though it's a God, but if you don't like that person, you just run away from that person since you don't like them back and they desire you, they want to take you or they want to seize you. So Daphne, learning that, she runs away. Daphne is terrified. She tries her best to outrun him. Just when he catches up to her, she screams for help from her father and turns her into a laurel tree. Though disappointed that he did not catch Daphne, Apollo decides that the laurel should be the victor's crown. Now let's go to the last part, which is all about Alpheus and Arethusa. So Arethusa, a mortal huntress, worships the speed and agility of Artemis. So Artemis, like, she's the warrior, goddess of warrior, hunting, diba? So Arethusa worships her. So one day, Arethusa is bathing in a river when she feels a rumbling beneath her. So there is a shaking beneath her. A voice says, "It is Alpheus, the river god." So Alpheus is a river god, am I right? Okay. And the voice says that Alpheus loves her. Oh my God, you are bathing and you're naked. You're bathing in the middle of the river and someone is shaking beneath you because there's a river god, and the river god who is named Alpheus confessed that he loves you. So but Arethusa wants nothing to do with him and runs away in fear. Just before Alpheus catches up to her, the huntress prays to Artemis. And the goddess, since the goddess is worshipped by Arethusa, so she always answers or responds to the praise of Arethusa. So as Artemis answered or responded, she turned Arethusa into a spring of water. That concludes the 8 brief tales of lovers. So to sum up, we have here the story all about Pyramus and Thisbe, Orpheus and Eurydice, Ceyx and Alcyone, Pygmalion and Galatea, Baucis and Philemon, Endymion, Daphne, and Alpheus and Arethusa. So as if you have listened to the report, the discussion, you might think that most of them have a tragic ending, but some got their happy ending too. Just like Baucis and Philemon and Ceyx and Alcyone. Not all the love stories will end happily ever after. Some might end because of deception, some might end because of maling akala, like that, wrong belief. But always, and just like also Orpheus and Eurydice, you should wait. Love is patient, or love has patience too. So you should have the patience to wait so that in the end, all this waiting will be worth it. Dili magdali, that is the rule. So I hope you get or you learn something from the discussion, which is all about the 8 brief tales of lover. So that's all, students, and good evening.